whole team has really gelled, maybe because of number 30.
Gogolak now will try one from the 46-yard line. It is good. It is good. The second one today for Gogolak to increase the Giants' lead now to 34-17 with 1 minute and 42 seconds to play.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video, and welcome to the Gridiron. I saw an article on Giants Wire, and it used some of Pro Football Focus. I know, take it for what it's worth, but they used some of Pro Football Focus's stats, right? Specific stat, and it kind of piqued my interest when I saw it, and I looked over the article, and it was, rather impressive, and it had to deal with Daniel Jones. Now, there's so much negativity out there. When your football team's 6-10, you got some negativity. It's there. No kidding. So when I see something positive, I try to, pay more attention to the positivity than the negativity. You can always find negative stuff, especially when it comes to New York. Media, people talking about the New York sports teams. So I try to pay attention to the positive stuff. So this article had to deal with Daniel Jones, and it had to do this that was called clean pocket passing grade. So when the quarterback has a clean pocket, what's his passing grade? Well, Daniel Jones' passing grade last year, when he the few times he had throughout the year where he had a clean pocket, was a 90.5. Well, I think that rated like 12th in the NFL. So that's not, not overly impressive. I mean, it's in the upper half, so that's positive. But what was striking about it was the fact that since Pro Football Focus has been doing this stat, that was the 4th highest grade ever for a second-year quarterback. Now, who are the other 3? Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, and Deshaun Watson. Last time I checked, those 3 guys are pretty good. 2 of them won Super Bowls. And Deshaun Watson, if he actually had a team, he might win a Super Bowl too, if hopefully he doesn't go to jail. But anyway, 90.5. It's like, that's pretty impressive. It just goes to show you, what you can do, when you give the guy a pocket, when you protect him. And you got to look, last year, kind of who was he throwing the ball to? Saquon wasn't there. Slayton was his number 1 target. Evan Ingram dropped every other ball that was thrown to him. Sterling Shepard had a nice year. Golden Tate was, wasn't that impressive last year. Having a clean pocket. Why don't we ask Patrick Mahomes what a clean pocket is? Well, all we have to go back to is just to the Super Bowl. Ask Patrick Mahomes how a clean pocket, how a nice pocket would benefit you, especially in a Super Bowl. Well, he threw the ball 49 times for 270 yards. Get your calculators out, people. That's 5.5 yards a pass attempt. That's pretty sad. He was sacked 3 times. They scored 9 points. He had all his weapons. The weapons were there. He was there. His weapons were there. The protection wasn't there. He kicked 3 field goals. He threw 2 interceptions. He threw no touchdowns. So let's average that out over a 16-game schedule, shall we? 2 interceptions per game for 16 games would be 32 interceptions in a season. 0 touchdown passes in 1 game times 16 would be 0 touchdown passes. So at that rate, with no protection and no touchdown passes and 2 interceptions, he would have no touchdown passes for a whole season and 32 interceptions. That's pretty sad. And we're talking about Patrick Mahomes here. And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about Daniel Jones is better than Patrick Mahomes. Daniel Jones is All-Pro, Hall of Famer. I'm just trying to specifically point out the fact that if you don't have a good pocket, you're in trouble. Even Patrick Mahomes can't do anything with it, right? Ask Tom Brady what a nice pocket could do for him when the Giants, when he was 18-0 and faced the Giants in the Super Bowl, huh? And we sacked his ass 5 times. He only scored 14 points. You need protection. You need a clean pocket. And having some weapons, too, is going to help. Daniel Jones was sacked the 3rd most times per game last year. Jeff Driscoll and Carson Wentz were the only 2 guys that get sacked more times per game than Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones played 14 games, okay? He was pressured more times than anybody. There were 2 other guys. Alex Smith was pressured 31% of the time, but he started 6 games. Nick Mullins of San Francisco was pressured 31.1% of the times. He only started 8 games. All right, so I'm talking about, Daniel Jones almost played the whole season. If he didn't injure himself trying to slide down against the Bengals, he would have played the whole season. He was pressured, 30.3% of the times. And Kirk Cousins, all right, of Minnesota, was pressured 30.2% of the time. All right, so just below him. So, but Daniel Jones was pressured the most times of any quarterback. Now, what does Daniel Jones of the Giants, Kirk Cousins of Minnesota, Alex Smith of Washington, and Nick Mullins of San Francisco, what do those 4 teams have in common? I know Washington made the playoffs, but no. All 4 of those teams had losing records. You ask Carson Wentz. He got sacked the most times per game on an average. Ask Jeff Driscoll of the Broncos. He got sacked the 2nd most time. What do those 2 guys, what do the Eagles and the Broncos have in common? Losing records. You need a pocket. You need passing, protection. Very, very important. So if we give Daniel Jones some protection and we give him some weapons, might be kind of impressive what he might be able to do. Now, he's been injured a little bit and he's struggled a little bit early on, his first 2 years, okay? It kind of reminds me of another quarterback the Giants had who led us to a Super Bowl victory. No, I'm not talking about Eli Manning. We're going back a little farther. We're going back to 1979. Phil Simms. Daniel Jones was selected number 6. Well, Phil Simms in 1979 was selected number 7. Now, let's not forget, right now, Daniel Jones is only 23 years old. When we drafted Phil Simms from Morehead State, he was 24 already. He was 24 when he started his first season with the Giants. So Daniel Jones is younger than Phil Simms was. In 1979, I'll tell you what, Joe Montana, or Joe Montana, if you ever watched The Waterboy, was available in the draft. And I'm a Notre Dame fan, and boy, I really was rooting for the Giants to take him. Well, Joe Montana got taken in the 3rd round, the last selection of the 3rd round. Phil Simms, we took him of number 7 overall in the 1st round out of Morehead. And when I heard that, I'm like, who? Who? What? Morehead State? I'm like, is that an elementary school? I mean, we got a 3rd grader playing quarterback. Who? What? I mean, it doesn't always mean the guy struggles early on. He comes from a kind of a no-name school or whatever, like Daniel Jones, with Duke. Many people wanted to take Dwayne Haskins because he came from Ohio State instead of Daniel Jones from Duke, right? Well, Phil Simms was from Morehead State, number 7 overall. That was an interesting year in the draft. Joe Montana made it to the end of the 3rd round. The New Orleans Saints with the 11th overall pick. 11th overall pick. Took a punter, Russell Erxleben from Texas. And you kind of wonder why the Saints came into existence in 1967. You kind of wonder why it took them till 1987 to get a winning season, huh? What an interesting season. What an interesting draft. So, Phil Simms, needless to say, he early on every year he got hurt. 1979 he got hurt. 1980 he got hurt. 1981 he got hurt. 1981 he separated his shoulder toward the end of the year, but it was in a loss to Washington. 1982 in the preseason he tore a knee ligament against the Jets in preseason. He was out the whole year. 1983, Bill Parcells took over for Ray Perkins as coach. Scott Bruner was our starting quarterback. One of the games, he was struggling. I think it was like week 6, something like that, against the Eagles. Put Phil Simms in. The second drive that Phil Simms was in, he threw the ball. He hit his thumb on somebody's helmet and like dislocated it. I even read stories that possibly the bone was sticking out. It was so bad or whatever. So he got hurt. He was constantly hurt. His first year, he only, as he played 12 games. Second year, he played 13 games. His third year, he only played 10 games. First year, he completed 50% of his passes. The second year, he completed 48% of his passes. The third year, he completed 54% of his passes, unlike Daniel Jones. First year, he completed 61.9. Second year, he completed 62.5. Phil Simms had 13 touchdown passes his first year, 14 interceptions, 9 fumbles. Second year, he had 15 touchdown passes. Cool. 19 interceptions, 6 fumbles. His third year, he had 11 touchdown passes, 9 interceptions, 7 fumbles. So he was struggling early on. He got hurt all the time. Finally, in 1984, he started getting healthy, and he led us to the playoffs. And we upset the Rams. We beat them 16-13. 1985, he led us back to the playoffs once again. He had a very, very good year. He set the Giants' passing record against the Bengals. Threw for 513 yards. The Giants, threw for 513 yards. The Bengals had 199 yards of total offense. Phil Simms threw for 513 yards, and of course, the Giants lost 35-30. Anyway, but even though he had all the success, he was getting better passing the ball. He had 16 fumbles in 1985, and he threw 20 interceptions. 1986, needless to say, he led us to the Super Bowl. So even he's hurt, he had some struggles, his injuries, this, that, and the other thing. 1985, we had a lot of success. We were looking really good. Of course, we lost to the Bears 21-0 in the playoffs that year. But even still, he had 16 fumbles. And, we complained about Daniel Jones having 18. Well, Phil Simms had 16 in 1 year. And he had 20 interceptions. Daniel Jones only had 12 interceptions. So, but as I said, finally in 1986, Phil Simms, led us to the Super Bowl. And he was a Super Bowl MVP. And Phil Simms started his career in 1979, and he ended in 1993. He started in 1979, took him till 1992 to complete 60% of his passes. I know the game has changed. It's not, exactly the same and this, that, and the other thing. I'm just trying to show you that if you come in and maybe you struggle a little bit in the beginning, and I remember watching the Giants were horrible when Phil Simms came in. He did win his first 5 games, though, that he started. But, I mean, he was, he just seemed so frail out there, and their offensive line was not very good, and he got beat up a lot. And you ever going to wonder if he was ever going to make it through a whole season. But, Daniel Jones get injured. Daniel Jones has some struggling. Same thing with Phil Simms. Phil Simms down the road led us to a Super Bowl. He also, in 1990, led our team to a 10-0 start, and we went on to win the Super Bowl that year. It was with Jeff Hostetler because Phil Simms got hurt against Buffalo, but Phil Simms led us to a 10-0 start in 1990, and we wound up winning another Super Bowl that year. I know the hook back in 1970 is, you got a longer leash. The hook's not quite as quick as it is nowadays. Nowadays, you get maybe 2-3 years or so, and they're if you're not winning, games, send your team to the playoffs and stuff, they're thinking about, okay, all right, you're done. We're going to get somebody else in there. I get that, but just goes to show you that if you're a quality quarterback and you might be struggling, getting injured early on, doesn't mean that you can't turn it around and take your team to the Super Bowl. And I believe if you get Daniel Jones protection and the weapons, you have a shot at going to the Super Bowl. That's why I think this year it's very, very important in the draft that they get an offensive lineman. Well, as always, people, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. You guys stay safe out there and go Giants. Woo!